How you doing
Gentlemen,
out there, man?
what's
How are
going
you doing
on?
out there? Again,
You
a
guys
guy
doing
that
all
needs
right?
no introduction to this audience. But dude, anyways, let people know who you
Yeah.
are, what you're about.
Sure. I'm Daniel Herrera. I am an attorney here in Knox County, and it's been an amazing time with AFP. I mean, I've been doing this stuff since I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was introduced, and I know she's watching. Di Bingle, she was the Charlotte coordinator, over there, and she got me so like involved in this. There were so many books that like I read, and it was awesome. So when I came to Knoxville, I mean, naturally, right? You find it as an AFP office here. I'm like, I'm in. It's like it really is like a whole family like in the political sector. It's awesome. It's great.
I
Wait, let me
and
just hold on. Let me just pause real quick. Did you just say the person who like got you into AFP is watching the stream right now? Is that what you just
Yeah.
said?
Oh yeah.
Whoa, cool. Well, hi there, person who recruited Daniel Herrera. That's super cool. I mean, he is an amazing political activist. So, like, good for you, whoever did that. And thank you for watching. And Daniel, like, you kind of undersold yourself here, man. You're kind of like an integral part of the Republican Party here in Knox County. You're on the dang it, the
Charter Review Committee is correct.
charter
Yeah.
review committee. You volunteer for things. You're always stepping up. You're improving yourself personally. You just like finished your law school thing and you got a business now. You are a kick. I almost said the wrong thing. Kick butt person.
he's doing that though. You're right.
I appreciate it, guys. But look, it's not about me right now, right? This is about saving our country.
That's
This is
right.
about putting the government back in check. I mean, that's 100% what this is. Like I said, I've known you guys for a while now, and I know your audience here. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting this stream, man. This thing, they're doing some good work here. I mean, you guys see it. They were doing it when they were on 92.3. This is awesome stuff.
So, and again, speaking of this eclectic mix of folks we're having out tonight, Daniel is a person that really helps round this out as well. So we have a libertarian guy, we have a young Republican guy, we have an anarcho-capitalist voluntarist. Sorry, is the better term for that individual, Sherry voluntary.
This issue
Daniel,
brings people together. It's all kinds of different people. It's awesome.
Right? But Daniel Herrera, lending a bit of sort of legal background, it's a different lens that you view life through after that, right? I mean, it truly is.
Right,
Man.
yeah, it is. It is. And, I took a super libertarian approach, before I went to law school. I was like, okay, if it's not an Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, government shouldn't do it, and I still feel that way. But, like, once you start realizing how the law works and kind of like why once government gets a certain power, forget it. They got it for life. They got it forever. Representative Martin Daniel, one of the things he said before was once government establishes a temporary committee, it's not temporary, it's always a permanent committee.
Man, so is that one of your fears then, I suppose? We talked about that briefly a second ago, that once the federal government attains this power to, say, have some type of oversight for the way that states are spending these bailout funds. I mean, I'm not talking like austerity measures that we saw with Greece in 2011, but it's a little bit of that conversation, though. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah, it can be. And the biggest fear is, we've labeled this as an emergency, but there's no precedent or kind of like legal kind of like standard for what an emergency is. If we're going to allow this to happen in 15 years, can a Democrat president or a liberal president say, abortion is an emergency and what's happening right now is an emergency, we're going to dedicate $200 million to abortion funds, just off the bat. It's dangerous because, as we've seen before with the federal government, anytime they tie in money, it's always a string attached approach. I want to give you guys just a quick example. The highway funds, right? The reason why we have a standard national standard of like how speed limits are on highways is because the government says, okay, if you establish the speed limit to this certain number, we'll go ahead and pay for the repairs. There's always a string attached to this. You just got to keep looking deeper.
Let me ask this, man. I'm not asking you to get into necessarily the history of or whether bankruptcy would even work there. But I don't know, man. Have you heard any attorneys talking about this? If bankruptcy isn't even an option, how they might impose this at a federal level, or even just in general about the basic notion behind socializing the debt across the rest of the country?
So that's a super interesting question because the federal government pretty much has this like unlimited power, right? And when you start looking at the supremacy clause and kind of like emergency powers, they essentially, once something's declared an emergency, they pretty much can do whatever they want. Now, municipalities are actually hitting that line where they're like, okay, we might declare bankruptcy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you just look recently, I think Chattanooga just had something like a 40% tax increase proposal. I think Memphis is going to do a proposal 50%.
Nashville is
increase.
considering a 32% increase now.
Yeah, so something in that lines. In New Jersey, Camden, those cities, Atlantic City, not too long ago, actually got so low that they were going to declare bankruptcy, and then the state actually had to go in and take over the city government. So the real question here is this too. Is the state of Tennessee going to subsidize the horrible decisions of the state of New York? And can the federal government go ahead and mandate that? That's the big question. And I think that's something that we're kind of starting to see here. And it's going to be done all under the guise of this is an emergency power and it's needed.
Let me ask you something straight up that's actually been bugging me a little bit too, because I frankly speaking, I would love to see all 50 states adopt something similar to or exactly like, say, a balanced budget amendment. I don't know if we have it in Tennessee, or I would love to see that across the board. I just don't want the federal government forcing it. I don't want the federal government doing it. I don't want it to be because of a crisis situation, because I just don't think it'll stick. I don't think it'll be right. It's honestly personal opinion here, separating for anybody else that's on the screen right now. Personal opinion. I fight a lot for criminal justice reform, but I don't want this crisis to be the reason that a lot of those reforms are taken on. I want it to be done the right way. Do you hear where I'm coming from, bro? Like I would love to see those states take on more fiscal, more responsible spending, but at the same time, I just don't want it to be a thing that's forced by way of the federal government because they took some bailout money. Am I wrong there? You get what I'm saying?
No, I think you're right. I mean, if we're truly going to take that federalism approach, if we're truly going to say, the states and the government are separate sovereigns, right? The federal government has their own budget, states have their own budget. Okay, I truly feel that your state should have should have complete control over what they spend. Even though we have that supremacy clause issue where if the federal government does pass a federal law, what that basically says is that it trumps state law. Now, does that matter? And does that count if it's a budget? Technically, because budgets are resolutions or sometimes they're bills, so it's technically a law. But if we're truly going to believe in that separate sovereign policy, that separate sovereign principle, that the states and the federal government are separate government entities that are both responsible to the citizens of that state, but are technically separate, we should not allow the federal government to dictate what states are able to do.
Hey, you want to join me in some slightly rocky territory for this last question here?
Let's
dive headlong into it, right?
Be brave, gentlemen.
Get ready for it. It's not that rocky. I'm just one final thing that's really been irking me a little bit is I look, we want to help our teachers and firefighters and other state workers that we all rely upon, obviously, clearly, but bro, some of these states, some of the way that these politicians have been handling this, I'll say this: states should help those individuals by making them a priority for the funds that they're spending and that they've already received. Right. They should not be exploiting this crisis to use them as bargaining chips in this massive federal bailout situation. And I'm not naming names here, but you know what I'm talking about, man, right? I've seen politicians come on camera and exploit the crisis to say like anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, it's all a political show. Look, your fire department, your police department, your municipality, your county, right? They're all paid really through property taxes. And your local police department, whether it's the Knoxville Police Department, Knox County Sheriff's Office, or whichever office, is in your county, those are state officials. They're not federal government. And if you really think about it, there is kind of an argument there as well, because there is one thing that the federal government cannot do to the states, and it's a constitutional principle that's called commandeering, and that's completely outlawed. So if you're going to go ahead and say, okay, if the federal government's going to say, okay, the state employees deserve this much, and we as this federal government's going to give them that, there's that argument that, okay, you're not only commandeering our people, but you're now commandeering our budget. Because what's going to happen is maybe they get used to that. Maybe that's a year program. And now people have adopted that kind of like income into like their lifestyle. And now the state is going to have to try to maybe compensate for that now. Let's separate it. Let the federal government do whatever's in Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution. Let the states do everything else under the 10th Amendment, and let it be. It's not the federal government's position. It's not even their authority to go ahead and try to use public service members, whether it's EMT, fire departments, or police officers, as bargaining chips in a political world.
Now that Daniel has impressed you with both his political and legal